Rebel Mind Podcast. Dude, you gotta hit that record button. Welcome back to the RMP. I'm Zachary, your host of this motherfucking podcast. You can find me on Instagram as the Muscle Hamster, and we're here to question the mess, make some rebel actions, and start living life on our own terms. Whatever that means. So I went through a rant today. This is another solo episode. I know I am trying to find new guests so that we can balance out the solo episodes a little bit. And I'm trying to figure out who exactly that I want to bring on the most, instead of bringing on people that I think people want to hear. I want to bring on people that I want to hear, if that makes sense. And that sounds probably a little selfish, but I'm okay with it because don't give a fuck. And I think that's where the best conversations come from, is the ones that you're actually curious about. So I figured out a couple things this week, but first, before I get way too entirely into myself, how is everyone? How are you doing? Have you noticed this guy back here? If you're only listening to audio, you may not notice this guy back here. This is Poseidon. I'll tell you the artist one day. But how is everybody? I hope everybody's moving forward. I hope everybody's being strong. I know I say this every time, but I fucking mean it, man. I really mean it. I see people every day kicking their own ass in the gym, and I wish that I could see more people kicking ass in the things that they love. I think it's something that really gets in the way and bothers me a lot is I don't get to see a whole lot, and it super sucks because you make assumptions about the world, but there's a lot going on in our lives, and I think that whatever it is that you're going through, dude, you fucking got it. You've got it. You can do this shit. And I think that as an individual, whatever it is that you're after, the only thing that's stopping you is yourself. I know it sounds super cliche, but there's so much that you need to not give a fuck about. There's so much that just doesn't matter, that truly doesn't matter. I know that everybody has obligations. I know that everybody has responsibilities, but there's so much in your life that you can connect with that has to do with you and doesn't have to do with anybody else. There's no reason that you have to jump into the mess, and you don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe, like, I know you might question this and be like, well, how do I help the world then? Well, the more you become an individual, the more that you decide to love yourself, and the more that you decide to follow or find whatever it is that you really enjoy, the more that you're going to help the world. Because regardless of what that thing is, it's going to change other people's minds. It's going to inspire other people. Authenticity and dedication to self changes the world, whether you are looking to do that or not. You don't have to be a big part of these political issues, and you don't have to be a big part of these domesticated issues in America. You don't have to be a part of any global issue. You don't necessarily have to be a part of anything, and you definitely don't have to be a part of everything. I can tell you right now that it is going to be too hard for you to be everything. I know that from my own experience, I care a lot. I really do care a lot, but it makes me mediocre at everything that I do because I try to do everything. I try to be a part of everything, and you just can't. It is better for you to be really dedicated to a lot of things that mean a lot to you than try to be a part of everything and have a conversation about everything. You're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to pull yourself in directions that you don't necessarily want to be pulled into in the first place. So regardless of who your friends are or what conversations are going on, don't let your emotions get the best of you, and don't be pulled into things that ultimately aren't going to matter and that take you away from a lifestyle that you want to have or a mission that you want to attach yourself to. You have to put a lot of hours in. You really do have to put a lot of hours in. And this is coming from somebody that fucks it up all the time. I fuck it up all the time. And I just want you to know that you need to give less fucks. You need to pay attention to yourself. You need to hop on the bandwagon of self-awareness and mindfulness and separating from global media and global influence right now, and just take a moment to find out who you are, or at least ask yourself who you are. Ask yourself 10 times the same fucking question. Who am I? Who am I? Who the fuck am I? And see where that takes you. Fall into the discomfort because you're going to need it. But I got into self-awareness today. It was just a little bit of a rant. It was a solo episode. It was super long. And it's just thought. It's just a lot of thought. So I also figured out why my pants keep ripping. I kind of thought, I was like, well, I mean, maybe it's just because, my thighs are too big, or or, I just have enough junk in the right space that, it can't contain itself. I'm just kidding. The second one is not true at all. I did kind of hope that my thighs were kind of like just rubbing together. And then I figured out how stupid I actually am. I figured out how much I could be humbled by my own assumptions. Assumptions will kick your ass. And it's legitimately, I don't know why this is so hard for me to figure out too. It's legitimately that I am 5'3", and I have a motorcycle that has a seat height of 32 inches or 32 and a half inches. And so I'm tiptoeing. And so there's no real easy way to transition back and forth on my bike because I can't flat foot. And so I'm shifting back and forth on my bike constantly all the time. And it's ripping holes in my jeans in the crotch. And so I figured that out, and it was super upsetting and annoying because I'm not going to stop riding, and maybe I should get some riding pants, but fuck it. I'm stubborn and a cheap ass. So, and I like to not have to change when I go everywhere. Fuck off, guys. Jesus. What else did I figure out? Oh, my dog is super anxious being completely by himself. It's a first for him in a very long time in a new apartment, and he's having a rough time. But how are your guys' dogs? I want to know. I want to see some puppies. But let's get out of this rant. This is just getting boring. Let's move on to the episode. This is episode 106, and it's all my thoughts on self-awareness. Let me know what you think. Enjoy. Let's get rolling here. Let's go. So I've been processing a lot over the last couple weeks, over the last, 6 years. 6 years. If you're a podcaster, you want to talk across the mic. Across. I actually probably should get another pop filter, but across the mic. Anyway, a lot's been going through my head about super stupid little things like where's my snapping point, or where's that point where I decide to make certain moves? Where is that point where I automatically believe in myself, my life changes? What is it that I give a fuck about? What is it that anybody should give a fuck about? I come across situations where I see people overthinking too much, and I've realized that over so much time, even if in the moment I struggle now and I feel lost now and I doubt about things now, I'm 10 times farther than I was 5-6 years ago when I had no idea who I was. And it brought on to me this gratitude and this realization that I'm far more self-aware of who I am, and I'm far more mindful of my thoughts and what I'm trying to do than I was so many years ago. And I think a lot of times most of us are having a problem with self-awareness, where I think mental health comes into play, where I think where it's an issue, and where I think most people are miserable and most people are not doing things that they want to do. I mean, look, I don't believe in a higher power. I don't think that there was a prophecy set out for me. I don't think that there's a set of things that were lined up for me to follow in order for me to get anywhere. But it does seem that I have been lucky in a way of not having a bunch of responsibilities so that I can become the person that I daily, monthly, yearly start to envision myself becoming. And it's kind of shitty, to speak about this out loud, about me still being lost and me still being doubtful and me still being unsure. But the one thing that I know is that as I grow, I find more curiosity and I find more answers than I ever had before. Before I created all these questions and I became depressed, I became reclusive, I shrunk. Whenever I have an issue or whenever I have a challenge, I shrink, or I tend to shrink. And I've grown out of that. And it's been really amazing knowing that I become aware of the way that I act and know more about myself than I ever have in what it takes to get me to push through something and what lies on the other side, like thinking forward long enough to understand that what I'm facing in the moment is just an emotional reaction, and it brings up automatic habits, and it brings up automatic thoughts, and it brings up automatic adjacent emotions that tell me to shut down. And I would say that in the moment, I'm probably more of at like a 50-50 of the times that I win and the times that I lose. They're just not fantastic odds. But it's far better than 20%. It's far better than 10%. It's far better than 2%. And I think a lot of people are at those lower numbers. And I'm not saying I'm better than anybody. I'm saying this is the process. This is what it takes for us to move forward. And I think that I was thinking about this the other day. To me, there's two things that get us to truly, truly change. And it's just because I've experienced those things myself to get me through so many moments of thinking that I'm not who I'm supposed to be. And those two things are resilience, just no matter what, continually going down the path, never giving up. And the other thing is humble curiosity about yourself and other people and the world around you, so that you're not creating a bias and a judgment that turns into something positive or negative necessarily, so that it takes you from a path, or takes you down a path that you think is you but is not actually you. Like having the ability to be as objective as you can, as often as you can, as neutral as you can, as many times as you can, so that you can make calls based on your goals and your logistical standards of yourself, rather than following how you feel all the time. Because I think a lot of times we have major issues and we have major resistance with our emotions. Our emotions become automatic. So think of like, how many of us, as soon as we get surprised, we get scared. Most of us become angry. I think that I tend to, for the most part, not get angry, but a lot of us do. And I know there's times that I should have. And so what does that mean? It means we're automatically reactive in a way, right? And I think the ability to not stop the surprise from happening, like not stopping the action from happening, but stopping quickly enough, maybe even allowing the emotion to happen, but stopping quickly enough afterwards to stop reaction so that you can process and respond. And when I was going through my life coaching certification, don't worry, I don't do any of that now. I couldn't stand the one-on-one. It was very difficult for me to only work with one person at a time. But we talked about this difference between react and respond. And response lies a lot more in the space of wisdom, of emotional intelligence, of mindfulness, of not allowing our emotions to control the situation. And reactive is completely the opposite. It's most of what is going on in the world right now, where everybody is reacting to everything. In my complete opinion, it almost seems as if we're just a bunch of immature children. And I'm not saying that to put anybody down. I'm not necessarily trying to punch down. I kind of like to punch up a little bit. I think that's a little bit where this whole rebel-minded idea comes from. But what I'm saying is that we're so in pain and we're so emotionally reactive that it turns into all these unfair, biased, judgmental, entitled things that we're putting out into the world. We're objectifying each other. We're taking away the fact that any of us look or feel human, and it's all for the sake of us reacting to our emotions. And our emotions are tied to traumas. They're tied to our opinions. They're tied to our beliefs. And it makes us put down everybody else around us based off of those emotional reactions. And to get back to self-awareness a little bit, I think that something that is super important when it comes to response is knowing yourself well enough that you're capable of changing the way that you are and getting away from your past self as much as you can. So for example, I've always had a very difficult time with the work that I do, that I still have to do. No matter what my passion projects are now, despite the podcast, despite all of my writing, and this idea of me wanting to have a writing career and create theory and create conversations, I'm ashamed of what I do. I'm ashamed of my 9 to 5, and it's a little bit freeing to say this here on the podcast, but it also feels a little dark because I know that in person, most people respond to things like this in a way that is deflective. They can't really handle conversations like this. And it's the cool thing about podcasting is being able to put out information and not necessarily expecting anything back. But there's this weird thing where I'm speaking into silence where there is no promise to coming back. But when you say it to a person and you're there with them and you expect a response from a friend or family member, loved one, partner, or whatever, and you don't get it, I think it hurts more when that happens. And so to continue on my thought here, I figured out that my shame for my job, because everyone's like, being an electrician is an amazing thing. Like it's such a good trade. It's super respectable. It's, you can get paid really well. And I've hated every word that anyone has ever said like that. It's made me super resentful. It's made me assume that everybody else is just trying to console me and, kind of band-aid what I'm trying to say and actually not help me help me in a way that makes me see forward in my own life. And that's the important part that I think about, that I really think is huge about friendship, is them trying to help you grow. They don't necessarily have to understand you. They don't necessarily have to know what it takes to help you, but to be there and to respond is a huge thing. So I figured out that I'm ashamed of my work because my own father has always been in labor trades, and he's been in trades fairly closely related to mine. And he's in his 50s now. He knows what he wants to do, but because him and I had such a hard relationship, in my pain and my resentment and my need for him when I was a younger human, I figured out that if I do any sort of labor work, in which is the same hand in which he did and does, then I'm not good enough, and that I can't be anything successful because my dad has always been a paycheck to paycheck guy. He's always lived in kind of rundown places. He's always had failed relationships. And so I figured out that I've tied that to myself. I've figured out that because I do this work, every moment that I have to be in it, I feel like a failure. And it's not just coming to terms with the work and being okay with it and objectifying it so that I can separate it and compartmentalize it away from the relationship with my father. It's also doubled up with the fact that it wasn't meant for my soul, that it's a type of work and it's a kind of mission that doesn't fit my lifestyle. It doesn't fit my vision. And for me to continue to do it is almost impossible for me every day that I do have to do it. And people don't have to understand that. People don't have to see that. But I think that is the shitty thing about so many of our situations, is that we may not see what it's tied to. Not only do we have kind of a suffocating system that makes us just work on survival and just paying our bills, but we also haven't done a lot of work, and a lot of us don't have enough time to do a lot of this work to dig into ourselves and figure out why we're so, number one, why we're so deeply attached and why it's so impossible for us to get away from these things, but also, two, why it is that we're in them in the first place, or why it is that it's so impossible for us to get away from them. Because I think the system is kind of set up to hold people in their place and to have a workforce that is unfortunately not meant to follow their dreams, but meant to support the industrial system. And I definitely have a problem with that. And I understand that it's hard to get out of these things. And like I said, I don't have kids. I've never been married. I have so much freedom. And the crazy part is that within so much freedom, I've wasted so much time not paying attention to myself, not paying attention to what I actually want, that all the time that I think that I'm using and all the time that I think that I don't have is wasted away doing things that I didn't realize were that much of a waste. And so the last few years have been this I don't know, this separation of impulsive dopamine dumped style things in exchange for the work that I have to do and the challenges that I have to face, the resistance that I have to face, as Stephen Pressfield says, in order to become the person that I want to become. Because every day, when I'm far away from my tasks, when I don't have to record, when I don't have to write, when I'm doing the things that I hate to do, I can dream. I can be in the middle of what I'm doing with my hands, and I can dream. I can sit there and say, or think to myself, I can't wait to be on the other side of this. I can't wait to be doing everything that I want to do. And the closer I get to actually having to do the work and having to face the challenge and having to face the discomfort, the harder it is for me to force myself to do them. The more my bad habits kick in, the more I tend to push away and distract myself and deflect and find excuses for why I can't do my work, which is really weird, right? Because it's that 10,000 hours thing of the more time you put in, the more time or the more closely you become that thing that you want to become. And it's so knotted in with things like self-awareness or the lack of self-awareness that it makes it very confusing to follow. And this is why I think that all of us should have therapists. I think that we should have access to therapists. I don't know if I'm not sure yet whether I completely agree with the medical system and us having universal health care. Good God, guys. But it sounds ideal. It sounds great. And I don't know, would our medical system be more flawed? Would there be less attentiveness? There would be less personal positive interactions if we had something like universal healthcare? Would it wane? Would it become bland? Would the healthcare just not be as up to par as it is now? I don't know. I really don't know. But it sounds great, does it not? I mean, I think that there's a lot going on with the medical system and the trifecta of prescription drugs and food industries and the government. Conspiracy theory much? Who knows? But I think it's messy, and I think it's way far left of where we're supposed to be, where we want to be. It's not exactly the home run we're looking for. But when you have 330 million people, whatever it is in America, then it puts a lot of chaos into the world, and it's, you know, one of the hardest things that we fight right now is clearly just dichotomy. The fact that we can't have conversations, the fact that we can't have conversations close enough for us to figure out not only who the other person is, but find out who we are. With lack of conversation, we assume a lot, and we assume what's right and wrong. And the very difficult thing that I think is hard for so many of us is that there is no right and wrong. Because no matter what I believe, there's somebody that is on the opposite that believes other things. And I mean, think about it. We all want to change the world, and we all think that we can do it in a positive way. We all think that it's for the best, in everybody's interest, to maybe follow it, whatever it is that is true to us, as if we're the superheroes that can change the world and make everything good again, as if it was never good before, or as if all of the past was bad and, you know, only now do we have the chance to make it better. I think people forget that our progress exists. I think people forget that right now things are getting better. I think that people are so wrapped up in the stories that they see on social media that they create this idea that is the world as a whole, or even just America as a whole, that we are just chaos. But when you think about it, what are the chances that most of our interactions, most of our experiences, most of us as people are actually good? What if you decided that the majority of people out there, that 90% of us, 95% of us, I don't know, somewhere in that range, are actually good people, and we're doing good things, and we're making things work? There's so many things that go under the radar, that because of the way that news is and the way that social media is, they're only propping up certain stories. And the hard thing about our psychology is that we're creating this story as if it's the only thing, it's the only thing that exists, and we're encompassing that as our own environment, as our own story. And the stupid thing is that we belittle and minimize everything that's actually happening in our own story, and we inflate everything that actually is, and maximize everything that actually is not necessarily true. And we complain about it to our friends. But when you go through your day-to-day, when you think about your last month, when you think about your last week, when you think about your last day, how much chaos did you actually see? Or how much did you see people working? How much did you see people loving? How much did you see people having great experiences? How much did you see people having new ideas and being innovative? Like, if we were to create something as normal, how much normal is there actually happening in your last month or your last week or your last day, compared to all the bullshit that we hear on social media? So the idea that I try to get across so much here is for us to be understanding of ourselves, for us to have individual power, for us to have autonomy, for us to be able to think for ourselves. And that's why I say to question so much, because most of the time we're not thinking for ourselves, right? We're thinking like everybody else thinks. And I get it. I know why that it works, because it takes in our soul, and it takes in our heart, and we know that we're not exiled. We know that we're connecting with other people, and it's super, super attractive. It's like a fucking siren's call from the Odyssey, where it's so hard to resist. I read stories all the time where I want to say something, But I know that if I do, I'm following suit with so many people that are pessimistic, so many people that are nihilistic. And just because I want to argue that they are thinking about it wrong, it makes me the same exact person, just on the opposite side. But it's the same style of person, if that makes sense, right? So what is it that self-awareness has that becomes so important? And really, I think the thing is that most of us just don't know what self-awareness is. We don't know what mindfulness is. There's these two things that we lose track of. And I think that we are so caught up in everybody else's lives that no wonder we're exhausted. No wonder we don't have time for anything. No wonder we don't have enough energy for anything. No wonder we can't figure out how to create the worlds that we envision, is because we don't envision them. We don't spend the time to create our own world. And it's not just about the things that you hear people say, that, you know, the role models that you listen to, and they say, take on this task, do this thing, like create a vision board, meditate, like do all these things that will eventually get you there. The whole point is not just creating, I'm going to put myself on a hole here. The whole thing is not to just do the tasks. It's in a way, this ability to separate yourself from the world so much so that you can know yourself. This is exactly why I like reading Meditations from Marcus Aurelius, because we have to be able to separate ourselves from the world so we can understand who we are, so we're not just a puppet, because that's what most of us are doing. We're so attached to our tribe, and we're so attached to our ideas, and we're so attached to our beliefs that we don't give ourselves a chance to know who we actually are. And I think when we don't know who we actually are, that's when there's so much pain. That's when there's so much misery, because nothing's clear. Like, we think it's clear because we're following some sort of narrative, but our heart and our soul tells us things all the time, and it makes us, like, there's these emotions that kick up that we never pay attention to, and we act out these lives, and we wonder why we're not happy. And I think it's because we don't listen to ourselves. We don't spend enough time away, and that's why, in my opinion, things are so chaotic right now, and why we are, I don't know, mentally unhealthy, why we're so unstable and so volatile as humans, is because our technology and our social media is fucking so hard with our psychology, that we're restless all the time. We're in anxiety all the time because we're not within ourselves. We're not capable of separating ourselves from the world, which, if you think about it, just 100 years ago, just 200 years ago, whatever, we didn't have this ability to globally know what is going on with everybody. And it's fantastic now. The information is fantastic. Like, we can influence more. We can decide to follow a path. There's so much good about our technology and being able to see things globally. But if we can't separate ourselves as an individual, then we tend to become the problems themselves. We tend to become the chaos, if that makes sense. And what I'm worried about the most, I think, is that I'm worried that so many people are going to end up becoming a thing that I'm most scared of before hell takes me. I am scared beyond belief. And I hope that I become more scared, because I want it to cause me to act more and more. I want it to cause me to push myself to my own individual thinking and my own creativity, my imagination, and the things that I'm super passionate about. I'm scared to death to regret on my deathbed, to be at death's door and know that I could have tried harder, I could have pushed more, I could have given less fucks, I could have changed more of the world. I don't want to be that close and have everything hit me all at once and not have any time left to do anything about it, not have any physical, mental, or spiritual energy to change the world in the way that I thought I could change it. So this self-awareness thing is becoming bigger and bigger in my own individual space. It's become super important, and I think it's become more and more clear of why it's such a big aspect to the Rebel Minded podcast and the Rebel Minded idea, is that you have to question the world enough, and you have to question yourself enough to create wisdom. Because wisdom doesn't come from knowing all. Wisdom comes from knowing thyself. I know that sounds super, super stupid and philosophical. Like, I sound like a 2,000-year-old stoic. Anyway, it makes sense for us to find wisdom in knowing ourselves. I think the more we know ourselves, the more we understand what it means to be human, and the more we understand what it is that the world's actually after. And we can truly understand each other's flaws. We can truly understand where we fuck up, and where we can have compassion for one another, and where we can respect each other despite our differences. I think that we all walk around with hypocrisy. I think no matter how hard we are on an idea, we walk around as hypocrites, because something else in our lives, because we're so complex and we're so diverse, something else in our lives is contradictive of what we tell the world and what we tell ourselves, and what the opinions that we voice, and the way that we talk to our friends and our families and our loved ones. And I think self-awareness is a superpower. I think the more that we can attach to our individual time, I think the more that we can separate ourselves from everything that's going on in the world, and we can think about our own problems first, the more that we can change ourselves in a way that would change the world. And I think the only way that we can change the world is by changing ourselves in a positive manner, at least. I think that without self-awareness, I think that our passions are either not there, we're not actually living them out, or they're tainted. I think they're skewed. I think that people will follow things that they think they love and be way off course for years, decades, when they don't have enough time to think on their own, when they don't have enough time to create individual wisdom. And creating individual wisdom doesn't necessarily have anything to do with filtering what comes from the outside. It really has to do with filtering what comes from the inside. If you have read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, then you'll understand what I'm saying, I think. The guy had no intention of any of his notes and his letters being written. He had no intention. They were completely for his own thoughts. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons why he is so impactful and so popular today, is because people have a connection to what he's saying about just being human. It goes across the ages. It doesn't change. We haven't been able to evolve out of those things, and I don't know if we ever will. Joe Rogan seems to think that we will eventually turn into the aliens, and and to do that, we have to separate from our emotions so that we can make things objective, so we can make good choices for humanity. I don't even know if I like that idea, but I like his imagination. I definitely like his imagination. So I think this is where I'm going to end on self-awareness. I don't think that I have much more to put into it today. I think I'm exhausting what my mind's giving me at the moment. But I think that whoever you are and whatever position you're in, ask yourself where you're at and where you're satisfied. Ask yourself where your emotions are at. Ask yourself where your heart is at every day. Are you full of anxiety? Are you super stressed? Is it related to your finances? Is it related to not knowing who you are? I think a lot of us really don't know who we are. And I think it causes us so much anguish, and it steals so much power from us. And I think the closer that we are to knowing what it is that we're supposed to do, whether you call that mission, passion, or purpose, whatever it is you're meant to do, the closer you get to that, the more power you have, and the more action you have, the more energy you have, and the less that you need any sort of handicap, the less that you need any sort of dopamine dump, impulsive action thing, like any sort of vice, the less you need of the things that don't fucking matter, the closer you get. I've realized that now. I've gone through 10 different things in the last 6 years. I've wasted a bunch of money. I've used a bunch of money. Maybe not wasted. I've used a bunch of money. And I've gotten better and better about where I use my energy, where I use my mental space, the people that I connect with, the money that I invest, or the money that I spend. It's all changed very, very slowly over the last 6 years. And I think it's because I've gotten closer and closer to what I think that I'm supposed to be. Right now, a writer and a podcaster is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And even if that changes, this was a necessary step to get to the next thing. And I think people don't realize things like that if you can just push yourself, if you can just make little changes, even if they fuck up, even if they completely fail, it's a question that has been answered, even if it's not the right answer, in order for you to get closer to the correct answer. In order for you to get closer to the next question that gives you the next answer that may not be right, that gets you to the next question, that gets you to the next answer. So question the fuck out of everything. Question the fuck out of yourself. Are you self-aware enough? Are you paying attention to what's going through your head every fucking day? Because 80% of probably what's going through your mind every day is not something that you want to be in there, something that is negative, something that doesn't give you any power, it doesn't give you any force, it doesn't give you any influence, it doesn't give you any imagination, it doesn't help your creativity, it doesn't help your energy, it doesn't help anything. 80%. I think there's actually a stat on this, but I'm not going to quote that because I'm possibly wrong. So this is my rant on self-awareness today. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you know me personally, connect with me. If you don't know me personally, connect with me too. And let's discuss this a little bit. This is quite a long one for 35 minutes. But I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm hoping to have some new guests coming up soon so we can balance out these solos a little bit. But let me know your thoughts. Connect with me. Connect with the podcast. Let me know what else we should talk about, what else we should question. And stay strong and stay rebel-minded. I'm out. Peace. Hey guys, I hope that all things we've brought here, including the people, have helped you change the way that you see the world. And if it has, then it would help us so much if you leave a rating and a comment on iTunes, or give any feedback wherever you listen to the RMP. Thank you for listening in, and don't forget to follow and subscribe. Question everything, my friends.